Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji, and Pranam, dear devotees. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Mangalacharan, and then read our prayers, and then Prabhupada Lilamrit. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा. Okay, so let's continue with Shravanam Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. We'll do some Vandanam with prayers. Um, See the screen. Okay, so we'll continue with verses 11 to 20 from Bhaja Govindam Stotram by Sripad Adi Shankaracharya. Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Samprapte Sannihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrin Karane Ma Kuru Dhana Jana Yauvana Garvam Harati Nimeshat Kalah Sarvam Mayamaya अखिलं हेत्वा ब्रह्मपदं त्वं प्रविश्य विदित्वा दिनयामिन्यौ सायं प्रातः शिशिरवसन्तौ पुनरायातः कालः क्रीडति गच्छत्यायुः तदपि न मुञ्चत् याशावायुः द्वादशमञ्जरी काभिरशेषः कथितो वैया करणस्यैषः उपदेशो भूत् विद्यानिपूर्णै श्रीमशङ्कर भगवत्चरणै काते कान्ता घनगतचिन्ता वातुलकिं तव नास्ति नियन्ता त्रिजगति सज्जनसङ्गतिरैका भवति भवार्णव तरणे नौका जटिलो मुण्डीलुञ्चितकेशः काषायाम्बर बहुकृतवेषः पश्यन्नपि च न पश्यति मूढः उदरनिमित्तं बहुकृतवेषः अङ्गं गलितं फलितं मुण्डं दशनविहीनं जातं तुण्डं वृद्धो याति गृहीत्वा दण्डं तदपि न मुञ्चत् याशापिण्डम् अग्रे वहनिः पृष्ठे भानुः रात्रौ चुबुकसमर्पितजानुः करतलभीक्षा स्तरुतलवासः तदपि न मुञ्चत् याशापाशः कुरुते गङ्गा सागरगमनं व्रतपरिपालनमथवा दानं ज्ञानविहीनः सर्वमतेन मुक्तिं न भजति जन्मशतेन सुरमन्दिरतरुमूलनिवासः शय्याभूतलमजिनं वासः सर्वपरिग्रह भोगत्यागः कस्य सुखं करोति विरागः योगरतो वा भोगरतो वा सङ्गरतो वा सङ्गविहीनः यस्य भ्रमणि रमते चित्तं नन्दति नन्दति नन्दत्येव भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bhajagovindam Stotram ki jai, Sripad Adi Shankaracharya ki jai, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, we can read the translations. Anybody would like to read translations from 11 to 20?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Yes, Kishori Mataji, please.
Hare Krishna. Do not boast of wealth, friends, and youth. Each one of these are destroyed within a minute. Free yourself from the illusion of the world of Maya and attain the timeless truth. Daylight and darkness, dusk and dawn, winter and springtime come and go. Time plays and life ebbs away, but the storm of desire never. The bouquet of 12 This bouquet of 12 verses was imparted to a grammarian by the all-knowing Shankara, adored as the Bhagavad. O madman, why this engrossment in thoughts of wealth? Is there no one to guide you? There is only one thing in 3 worlds that can save you from the ocean of samsara. Get into that boat of satsanga, knowledge of the truth, quickly. There are many who go with matted locks, many who have clean-shaven heads, many whose hairs have been plucked out. Some are clothed in saffron, yet others in various colors, all just for a livelihood. Seeing truth revealed before them, still the foolish ones see it not. Strength has left the old man's body, his head has become bald, his gums toothless, and leaning on crutches. Even then the attachment is strong, and he clings firmly to fruitless hope. Behold, there lies the man who sits, warming up his body with the fire in front and the sun at the back. At night, he curls up the body to keep out of the cold. He eats his beggar's food from the bowl of his hand and sleeps beneath the tree. Still in his heart, he is a wretched puppet at the hands of passions. One may go to the Ganga, observe fasts, and give away riches and charity. Yet, devoid of jnana, nothing can give mukti, even at the end of 100 births. Take your residence in a temple or below a tree. Wear the deerskin for the dress and sleep with Mother Earth as your bed. Give up all attachments and renounce all things. Blessed with such vairagya, could any fail to be? One may take delight in yoga or boga, may have attachment or detachment, but only he whose mind steadily delights in Brahman enjoys bliss, no one else.
Krishna. Thank you so much, Kishori Mataji, for reading that wonderful translation of these very, very wonderful verses by Sripad Adi Shankaracharya, who is known as Bhagavad Pad. Bhagavad Pad means somebody who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. So, like Srila Prabhupada is called Prabhupada. Prabhupada is also Prabhu is the Lord, Sri Krishna, and somebody taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord is Prabhupada. And Bhagavad Pad is also similar connotation. Yes, and how he says here that we have to not run behind wealth, women, and pride. Right? So in Sanskrit, there are 3 things. They say Kanak, Kamini, and Kirti. Kanak is like running behind material desires. Kamini is running behind sensual desires. And then Kirti is running behind pride. So those are the 3 kind of large valleys that we have to cross on this path of self-realization. And there are many who fall down in the first valley itself, who are running behind just wealthy desires. And then second valley is others fall down, the yogis, they may be trying to perform austerity and penance out of their own, trying to boast of their own sadhana, but again, they may fall down at sensual level. We've seen many rishis, munis who have been meditating underwater and on the mountains, right? But we have seen from history that also happens. And then finally, there is also the the value of name, fame, right? People get so much lost by their own, get lost in their own kind of name and fame. When that comes, then people start thinking, "Oh, I'm the best, and I know everything," right? And even at that stage, you may fall down. So again, those are tests that come along the way. And here, Shankaracharya is telling us to be aware of those and get into the boat of satsanga, like how Prabhupada is making his disciples get into the boat of satsanga by regularly hearing, chanting. Right? These are the main things, Shravanam and Kirtanam. Hearing, chanting, dancing, feasting. Right? So those are like our USPs of what Srila Prabhupada has taught us. So if you get into that boat of satsanga, of knowledge with a pure devotee, then, like here he says, we don't even have to go to Ganga to bathe. People go to Ganga to bathe and wash their sins away. But actually, by taking association of a pure devotee, it is even more purifying than bathing in Ganga, because bathing in Ganga only purifies your external body and washes away your sins, but your internal consciousness, as long as that is not changed, then there's no point of doing any of these external things. So, like, again, in Sanskrit it says that darshan matra pavitra kare, ei tumhara gun. Just by taking darshan of a pure devotee of the Lord, we can cross over this ocean of samsara. And that is more purifying and liberating. And listening and hearing attentively to such pure devotees, that is more purifying. So that should be our goal, as what Sri Shankaracharya is telling us here. Leave the attachment to yoga and bhoga, but have attachment to bhakti. Okay, so let's continue with Srila Prabhupada Lilamrit. Yesterday we saw Prabhupada has come back to US, and he's getting his 6 disciples, 3 couples ready. Like he was saying yesterday, he is expecting them to go to London and preach boldly, enthusiastically, and sing kirtan and attract others towards this Yuga Dharma. And yeah, that is one difference between, like, when we read these bhajans and translations, that is one thing. Like, it's not just singing, like how in musical concerts people sing, but there's a difference between singing professionally and bhajan. Bhajan is when we meditate on the deeper inner meanings of these verses that our acharyas have given us. Right? That is bhajan. So there is a difference between singing and bhajan. And that is what Prabhupada is teaching these 6 devotees, that how to perfect their kirtan, right? That's what he was teaching them, that he wanted them to perfect their kirtan, the Vaishnav songs, before they travel to London, because then through perfection comes purity and sincerity, of course. And since you have sincerity, then comes purity and perfection. So Prabhupada was correcting Yamuna Mataji, and today we all sing the morning Shringar Aarti in all ISKCON temples at 7:30 a.m. in the morning. The Brahma Samhita prayers in Shringar Aarti, that has been so nicely recited by her. So that came because of the correction and the perfection that Prabhupada wanted her to have in Sanskrit words. So we saw that yesterday. And now Prabhupada is traveling all over the US, San Francisco, LA, right? Now in Montreal and Seattle. So this is the period of 1968. Prabhupada says, we are not hippies, we are happies. He's converting all the hippies into happies all over these cities. Yeah, this is a very special time. I also remember this is 1968 June. That is when Prabhupada actually met one of the other very dear disciples of his, my beloved spiritual master, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, who we also address him as Bhagavad Pad, like we was giving the example of Bhagavad Pad, Shankaracharya says. So Gopal Krishna Maharaj actually met Srila Prabhupada at this time in June 1968. That was the first time he started coming to Montreal Temple for a year, and then in 1968 when Prabhupada came to Montreal, that's when he actually first saw him. And his first service, even before he saw Srila Prabhupada, was to clean his apartment where Prabhupada was going to stay. So he spent the whole day cleaning windows, doors, everything. It's just wonderful. Somebody whom you have never met, well, only in this lifetime, right? I'm sure he has met Prabhupada from lifetime after lifetime as spiritual master of his, but in this lifetime he had not even seen him when he actually did that service. He cleaned the whole apartment for a whole day, And then Prabhupada stayed in that apartment. So anyway, so that was this time. So let's continue reading. I'll continue from here. We are reading from this paragraph. More than being a visiting lecturer or a formal guide, Srila Prabhupada was the spiritual father of his disciples. They accepted him as their real father, and he found them devoted and affectionate, far more than his own family had been. These young American boys and girls, the flower of your country, Prabhupada called them, had received the blessing of Lord Chaitanya and were delivering that blessing to their countrymen. Prabhupada said it was up to his American disciples to save their country. He was giving them the method, but they would have to implement it. Srila Prabhupada loved his disciples and they loved him. Out of love, he was giving them the greatest treasure, and out of love, they were following his instructions. This was the essence of spiritual life. On the basis of this love, the Krishna consciousness movement would grow. Not surprisingly, some disciples had fallen away to their former materialistic way of living. But Prabhupada sought those sincere souls who would stay. That was the important thing, he said. One moon is more valuable than many stars. So even a few sincere workers would accomplish wonderful things. The sincere and intelligent would stay, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would empower them to carry out his desires for distributing love of Krishna. In this way, the devotees' lives would become perfect. Many disciples, in fact, already felt this happening. Krishna consciousness worked because they sincerely practiced it and because Srila Prabhupada carefully and patiently tended the growing plants of transcendental loving service he had planted in their hearts. Los Angeles, October 1968. Srila Prabhupada returned to find the devotees living and worshipping in an exciting location on Hollywood Boulevard. A large Sankirtan party organized by his disciple Tamal Krishna would chant Hare Krishna on the streets all day and sell Back to Godhead magazines in larger quantities than ever before, as many as 200 magazines a day, with a collection of over $100. Then, one day, shortly after Prabhupada's arrival, the landlord evicted the devotees from their place on Hollywood Boulevard. With no temple, the devotees moved to scattered locations throughout the city. As many evenings as possible, however, they would all gather in someone's garage, lent to them for the evening. And Srila Prabhupada would chant Hare Krishna with them and lecture. Then, Prabhupada rented a former Christian church on La Cienega Boulevard. He introduced a more regulated deity worship and an increased Sunday love feast. Each week would bring a new, specially planned festival with a big feast and hundreds of guests. These new programs in LA encouraged Prabhupada, and he wanted to see them introduced in ISKCON centers throughout the world. Srila Prabhupada was planning to go to England, but first he wanted to visit his farm project in West Virginia, and he had also been promising the devotees in San Francisco he would attend their Rath Yatra festival in July. This traveling to establish and expand his ISKCON was alone enough to keep him busy, yet he was also always meditating on his work of translating and commenting on Vedic literatures. In LA during December, Srila Prabhupada had begun the Nectar of Devotion, a summary study of Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The Nectar of Devotion would be a handbook for his disciples, elaborately explaining the science and practice of Bhakti Yoga. Simultaneous with the Nectar of Devotion, he had also begun Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a summary study of Srimad Bhagavatam's 10th canto. Visiting the temple only on Sundays, he had spent most of his time at his small rented house on the outskirts of Beverly Hills, where he worked intensely on his two major literary projects. Prabhupada's most ambitious literary undertaking, the completion of Srimad Bhagavatam, was to be no less than 60 volumes. He had begun in India in 1959, and all along he had been aware that he was attempting a gigantic task at an advanced age. Now, Krishna was giving him opportunities both for writing the Vedic literatures and for traveling, and he was working at an amazing pace. The force driving Prabhupada was the desire of his spiritual master, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. As for how much time he had remaining to execute his mission, that was in Krishna's hands. Everything was up to Krishna. If Krishna wants to kill you, no one can save you. And if Krishna wants to save you, no one can kill you. Yet, although Prabhupada was always in transcendental consciousness, beyond the effects of old age, he was aware that he didn't have many more years left. All along, he had had the vision of a spiritual movement for all nations and cultures. And to establish this, he was racing against time. Srila Prabhupada's mood of urgency was the natural mood of the Vaishnava preacher. an ambition to engage everyone in loving service to Krishna. Without Krishna consciousness, the bewildered, conditioned souls of Kali Yuga were all heading for the horrible consequences of their sinful lives. Prabhupada's sense of urgency, therefore, was an expression of his compassion. He wanted to save the gross materialists who were blind to the existence of the soul. If they wasted their human life, they would suffer millions of years before getting another chance to awaken their Krishna consciousness and go back to Godhead. The heart attack Prabhupada that endured in 1967 had accelerated his mood of urgency. Although, before the heart attack, he had often worked like a young man and played the drum for hours, now Krishna's warning was clear. The heart attack was to have been the time of his death, Prabhupada had said. But because his disciples had prayed, our master has not finished his work, please protect him, Krishna had spared him. Similarly, on the boat to America in 1965, his heart had almost failed, but then also Krishna had saved his life. The scope of Prabhupada's work was enormous. Even with many years and good health, he could never finish. Prabhupada saw that in future generations, many people would come forward to help, and thus, by a combined effort, the Krishna consciousness movement would continue to check the forces of Kali Yuga and save the entire world. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had predicted this, and Prabhupada knew that it must come to pass. But the task of erecting the framework for this universal effort rested on Prabhupada alone, and he worked tirelessly, knowing that unless he established a complete foundation, the entire mission might later collapse. Beginning with Prabhupada's first success in New York City in 1966, Krishna had shown unlimited opportunities for spreading Krishna consciousness. But how much time was there? Only Krishna could say. It was up to him. Prabhupada remained ever mindful of the vast scope of his mission and the ever narrowing span of time he had in which to complete it. I am an old man, he often told his disciples. I could pass away at any moment. Srila Prabhupada would receive several letters a week from the devotees in London. It was now December 1968. The devotees had been in London 4 months, and still they had no temple, nor even a place where they could live and worship together. Mostly they had been visiting Hindu families, holding kirtana, and sharing prasadam. Srila Prabhupada had encouraged this, but after hearing a few reports, he decided the program was stagnant. The devotees should not expect much from the Hindus, he said. They have become hodgepodge due to so many years of subjugation by foreigners and have lost their own culture. I am concerned to preach this gospel amongst the Europeans and Americans. The devotees were jolted, but they knew Prabhupada was right. Determined to change their tactics, they immediately began lecturing at colleges and universities and chanting in the streets. They were preaching to the British, and it felt right. When they wrote to Prabhupada that although they had accomplished little, they were planting seeds, Prabhupada replied, regarding your analogy of sowing Krishna consciousness seeds, I may inform you that there is a Bengali proverb, Sabure Miyoya Phale. This means that fruits like chestnuts and pomegranates or similar other valuable fruits and nuts take some time to be fructified. So, any good thing comes into our possession after hard struggle and endeavor. So, Krishna consciousness is the greatest of all good fruits. We must therefore have necessary endurance and enthusiasm to get the result. We shall never be disappointed when things are presented in reversed order. Anyway, your honest labor is now coming to be fructified. Always depend upon Krishna and go on working with enthusiasm, patience, and conviction. Through the spring and summer of 1969, Prabhupada continued touring his American ISKCON centers. From Los Angeles, he had sent Gaurasundara and Govindadasi, a young married couple, to Hawaii, and on their invitation that he come during the mango season, he joined them. But when he got there in March, he found that it was not mango season and that his disciples had accomplished little. They had taken jobs and were working full time just to support themselves. New York City, April 9, 1969. Prabhupada traveled to New York City, the birthplace of his Krishna Consciousness Society, where his movement had been growing for nearly 3 years. Although the center was established and his books were being distributed, he still had to visit to strengthen the devotees. His presence gave them determination and courage. For 7 months, they had carried on without his personal touch. But his visits, when he would sit in his room and reciprocate warmly with them, were vital. Nothing could equal these intimate meetings. Many devotees, new and old, crowded into Prabhupada's apartment at 26 Second Avenue. There was one reporter for the Honolulu Advertiser, Prabhupada said. He was putting questions to me, and then he wrote an article. The Swami is a small man, but he is delivering a great message. That is true. I am small, but the message, that is not small. Brahmananda showed Prabhupada the globe with markers representing his concenters. Now there is one in North Carolina, Brahmananda said. Then it becomes 15? Prabhupada asked. He was smiling and looking directly from one devotee to another. I want each of you to go and start a center. What is the difficulty? Take one Mridanga. Then another person will come and join you. He will take Kartals. When I came here, Brahmananda and Achyutananda were dancing. And after chanting, hundreds of men will come to your storefront and enjoy chanting and dancing. The girls also? Rukmini asked. There is no harm, Prabhupada said. Krishna does not make distinction, female dress or male dress. I mean to say, the female body is weaker, but spiritually the body does not matter. In the absence of Lord Nityananda, his wife Janava Devi was preaching. First, you must understand the philosophy. You must be prepared to answer questions. Krishna will give you intelligence, just like I was not prepared to answer all these questions. But Krishna gives intelligence. After 8 days in his New York City home, Prabhupada went to Buffalo. At State University of New York at Buffalo, Rupanuga was teaching an accredited course in Krishna Yoga with some 60 students enrolled, regularly chanting the Hare Krishna mantra on beads. Prabhupada stayed for a few days, lecturing and initiating disciples. Then he went to Boston for more initiations and several marriages. Columbus, Ohio, May 9, 1969. The devotees had arranged for Prabhupada and Allen Ginsberg to chant on stage at Ohio State University. Allen had been a friend of the Krishna consciousness movement from its first days on the Lower East Side. Shortly after Prabhupada's arrival in Columbus, he stopped by Prabhupada's house and discussed philosophy with Prabhupada for several hours. Allen was friendly with Prabhupada, as always, but he doubted whether Krishna consciousness would become popular in America. The need, he said, is for a large, single, unifying religious movement in America. So here is Krishna, Prabhupada replied, all attractive. Now you can say, why shall I accept Krishna? But since you ask for a unifying element, then I say, here is Krishna. Now you can analyze. Why should you accept Krishna? And I shall reply, why you shall not? Whatever you want or expect from the Supreme or unifying, everything is there in Krishna. If Prabhupada wanted his movement popularized, Allen suggested he should consider omitting many of the sectarian Hindu aspects, such as the dress, the food, and the Sanskrit. Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada replied, was not sectarian or Hindu. Lord Chaitanya had said that a person could chant any name of God, but one must chant. As for the food, Prabhupada explained that any food was acceptable as long as it was purely vegetarian. And dress, there was no stricture that Americans wear robes and shave their heads. The Hare Krishna mantra, Prabhupada added, was a natural sound, not foreign. Allen objected. The Hare Krishna mantra sounded foreign. Perhaps they should think of an alternative, more American mantra. This is going on, Prabhupada replied. Some people are inclined to one thing and some to others. And it will go on until the end of the creation. But our position is that we are searching after the center. And here is the center. At Ohio State's Hitchcock Hall, 1,000 students occupied the seats, and 1,000 more crowded the aisles and stage. The program began with a kirtan led by Allen Ginsberg. Allen then introduced Prabhupada, and Prabhupada lectured. When Prabhupada began the second and final kirtan of the evening, the students responded wildly. Those seated stood and danced, some jumping in their seats, and those in the aisles and on the stage also joined in. Amid the thunderous kirtan of nearly 2,000 voices, Prabhupada began to dance, jumping up and down on the speaker's dais, his hands raised high. He threw flowers from his garland, and the students scrambled for them. The wildly ecstatic kirtana continued for almost an hour, and then Prabhupada brought it to a close. Afterwards, hundreds of students crowded close around Prabhupada, asking him questions. Many students continued to chant as they left the hall, and some left crying from the new sensations of spiritual happiness. The next day, the ecstatic night of chanting at Hitchcock Hall was the talk of the campus. Prabhupada was pleased with the evening, and he described the event in a letter to devotees in Los Angeles. Yesterday at the Ohio State University, we had a tremendous meeting, and nearly 2,000 students were dancing, clapping, and chanting along with us. So it is clear that the student community has a nice potential for accepting this philosophy. Hare Krishna. Okay, so pause here. Yes. So finally, Prabhupada is back in Ohio, where he came first, right? In Butler County. Well, it came to Pennsylvania, but very close to Ohio. And now he's in Ohio, Columbus. Yes, and we see today also all these wonderful university programs are going on by the um, tireless endeavor and services of many, many devotees in Ohio, in Columbus, in Ohio State University, and also here, of course, in many of the universities around us also. Yeah, but again, Prabhupada in this whole thing is again teaching the same, teaching all the principles, right? We saw he started Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, the Krishna book, Nectar of Instruction. He's talking about again enthusiasm, determination, conviction. He's just infusing that, right? What he has within him. So like when somebody is so dedicated and so pure that they are only thinking of Krishna 24/7, Krishna is there in like roam, like we say in Hindi, roam, like in every pore of their body. And when that is there, then only that will come out. And that's what Prabhupada is bringing out. And he's just infusing, he's kind of, like we say, he's infecting that infection, that disease of Krishna consciousness, or spiritual disease, I should say. Right? Kind of the is infecting all his disciples with his spiritual vibrations. And here in the university, of course, 2,000 students. I can imagine how it would be. When we have 150 at the center. Sometimes in Janmashtami, last year, we had 700, 800 devotees. That was just jam packed, and we can feel the positive energy. 2,000 students is amazing. But yeah, it is, yeah, it is really wonderful what he was doing at that age. He knew he had limited time, but the opportunities are unlimited. The services at the lotus feet of the Lord that we can perform are unlimited. And that is the mood of a pure Vaishnava, that they want to give as much as they can in as limited a time that they have, because the because yeah, like Bhaktisiddhanta was saying, um, there's always ever freshness. It is always ever fresh. Nothing is stale in Krishna consciousness. And the Lord's Leela, the Lord's pastimes, they're also ever fresh. And every moment they can publish publications every second, what to speak of every day. Similarly, Prabhupada knew he had so much to accomplish, his life's mission to translate Srimad Bhagavatam and all these wonderful Vaishnava literatures. But he had limited time. But he knew if he did it, then future generations, he could already see that there will be future generations who will carry it forward. And we see how Prabhupada's disciples have sincerely followed his instructions and done that for the last 5, 6 decades. And with many, many more devotees and disciples joining, now we have millions of devotees around the world. And there are so many of them who are so humbly carrying forward this mission without any name, fame, recognition, sitting in the background doing so many services. There are so many devotees we don't even hear about anything, but there are so many like that who are just taking forward the movement that Prabhupada started, and his disciples have instructed us how to do that by chanting, dancing, feasting, simple process of bhakti. Yeah, that's how we become dear to our Guru Varga. And when we become dear to our Guru Varga, then we become even more dear to Lord Shri Krishna. I was reading a lecture yesterday. You're reading like a transcript of a lecture by Bhakti Ashra Vaishnava Maharaj, who was a disciple of my Guru Maharaj. And he was he was also traveling all over US, Canada. And he was giving one pastime of Hanumanji and Lord Ram, which kind of relates to this, what we read today. And he says that when once Hanumanji, when he goes to meet Lord Ram in Ayodhya, in Saket, and he is stopped by the guard there, and he says, "Please, we cannot allow you to go in right now because Lord Sri Ram is very busy right now." And Hanumanji kind of feels a little offended that he's such a top devotee of the Lord, and he's being stopped to go and meet the Lord. The Lord doesn't have time for him, so he continues to ask the guard, "No, go and tell Lord Ram that I'm here and I want to meet him." And then they keep telling him, "No, Lord Sri Ram had told us not to allow anybody right now because he's busy." And anyway, he persists, and then they go in and they tell Lord Ram, and Ramji says, "Yeah, didn't you tell him that I'm busy?" He said, "Yes, we told him, but still he wants to meet you." Finally, he says, "Okay, I'll ask him to come in." So he goes in, and then Lord Ram says and actually Hanumanji says, oh Prabhu, what are you doing? And Lord Ram says, I'm little busy right now reading this book or reading this kind of pages. He has a lot of pages that he's just kind of looking into. And Hanumanji asks, what is that? What is it that you're reading? He says, well, this is a list of all my devotees who are always thinking of me. He says, wow, that is amazing. And my name should be there on the list. Hopefully, it should be there at the very top of the list because I'm always thinking about you. And then Lord Ram looks at it again and then looks at Hanumanji and says, no, your name is not on this. And Hanumanji becomes very, very sad. He starts like tears start falling out of his eyes. He said, well, I'm always serving the Lord, always thinking of him, but still my name is not on the list. I'm not qualified to be his devotee. And then Lord Ram sees him and he thinks, and he becomes compassionate and he says, no, no, don't cry. Then he shows him another list. And then he says, this isn't, and he says that this is another list here. And then he asks, so what is this list about, Lord or Prabhu? And then he says, well, this is a list of all the devotees who are very, very dear to me, very, very dear to me. And then Hanumanji says, oh, acha. And then he says, your name is here at the very top in this list. so, so what the moral of that story was that, when we are always, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Satyadiktanam Pajtam Priti Purvakam, who are completely devoted to me, constantly engaged in my devotional service, they are very, very, with love and devotion, they are very dear to me, right? And they will come to me. So we have to show, like Prabhupada is teaching us here, we have to have that mood of constant devotion, literally 24 by 7, utte, baithte, khaite, soite, yatha tata naam le, whether we are standing, sitting, sleeping, eating, drinking, walking. Pure devotee never forgets Krishna. He sees Krishna in everything and anything and everything around him. So when we do that satatam continuously, when we chant, even when we are not chanting on japa beads, we can still remember the Lord, can still continue to use our tongue, vibrate our tongue to chant the holy name. We can sing these beautiful prayers that we sing, always remember the Lord that way. Then when we are on that list, first list, we qualify ourselves to be on that list when we are constantly chanting. Then after that, we reach a point where we don't have to do anything. Then we get on to the other list, where the job of Krishna starts. Then he starts thinking about his devotees all the time. They are so dear to him that he moves them from the list 1, list A, to list B, where on the list B, those devotees are always there in Krishna's thoughts. And that is how a pure devotee is, that like Srila Prabhupada is, that they are qualified to go into that list B. So hopefully by our sadhana, someday we can qualify ourselves. If we can qualify ourselves to be on list A, where we are constantly remembering Krishna, then there will be a day that will come. And hopefully in this lifetime itself, like Prabhupada says, we don't have to worry about what will happen in the future, what will happen in the next life. This lifetime, we can perfect our lives and go back home, back to Godhead. And Krishna will take care of that. And Krishna promises that in Bhagavad Gita, that ye yatha mam prapadyante tam satyam bhajamyaham. So he will make sure that he carries us back home, back to Godhead. And more than him, our Guru Parampara, our Guru Varga, Srila Prabhupada, will provide the recommendation letter with which we can go back home. Okay. Anyways, I was just reminded of that since I just heard that yesterday, and I just felt like what Prabhupada is doing here at that age, at 70, 71, 72 years, constantly going from city A to city B to city C and initiating disciples and planting the seed of bhakti in all the young people's hearts, like students, is just amazing. Okay, any other thoughts, reflections? Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Kishori Mataji, once again for your association, Pawan Prabhuji for your wonderful chanting, Ritesh Prabhu for your consistent participation. I know this is weekend, and I know many of our regular devotees are traveling, and so hopefully next week we'll have more devotees joining again. But today we have a wonderful festival at the center, Pushpabhishek, annual Pushpabhishek, where we will bathe the deities in kind of an ocean of flowers. So we look forward to that wonderful festival. And we'll see you all this evening, hopefully, for the for this wonderful festival. Okay, if there's no other comments, then we'll conclude here. Thank you so much. Pawan Prabhuji, Kishori Mataji, anything before we
Hare
wrap up?
Krishna, all good.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare
वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद की जय. शिला प्रभुपाद लीलामृत की जय. निताई गौर हरि हरि बोल. हरे कृष्णा.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you so much.
Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.